Okay, hi guys. This is Unit 3, and we are talking about our different articles from Horizon Reports. So, my name is Andrea Thompson Spears. I had the 2021 EDUCAUSE Horizon Report on security, internet security. Okay.
All right. And my name is Dominique Andrich. And I did the Horizon 2021 report too. I did the same one. So did you read about the trends too?
I did read about the trends.
Oh, this is going to be easy. We got
Yes.
it.
So they talked about, let's see, the different trends, the technological, uh, economic, environmental, political trends in security. One of the things that stuck out to me was they talked about the borderless networks without boundaries and how we have actually transitioned to these things, especially with COVID. And we are not bound to, the network working on campus. Now you can access stuff that you weren't able to access outside of the building at home. And how, what was the other one I saw? They talked about how, the use of the cloud and how we are all transitioning to, saving things on and having a cloud-based networks, which is funny because I wanted one for my house because I found that using like the Google platform, it's amazing. I'm not so much sold on the Microsoft. It still feels like and it could be because it's designed for corporate America, and I think Google is much more education friendly. But I like having those being able to, collaborate on documents and things and in real time, and not like we used to do, just save it and send it and then you edit and save it and send it back. That's like
right.
But even it talks about like using your personal devices for business. So that was a huge thing. I know when COVID hit, because we were at home and teaching remotely, and we were all on our personal computers because we couldn't get computers from the school. Some teachers had school computers, but they had to disable some of their firewalls because we weren't able to get to a lot of stuff. So that was quite interesting in how they still were able to, stop a lot of threats from coming into their networks. Now, I know where I work, they still had a lot, and they're still tweaking the network because people are still getting by the system. Because I remember being on a Teams meeting when we were teaching remotely, and somebody from outside of the district came in on a team.
That happened to me too.
And I'm like,
that was the scariest thing that ever happened.
And I was like, hold up, I'm going to shut this down and I'll call everybody back in. And I was like, no, I did not know who that person was, and they were outside of the district. And I was like, no, that's not about to happen. So, yeah, that was interesting.
So when I was looking through it, I found that it was really interesting that like they had kind of talked about in the introduction a little bit how that this whole year it was like a big eye opener for everyone, and how they had never had an Uber trend before, but they had also never had a year like we had before. And so they actually they found something that was just so it casted over every category they have, and that was the remote learning.
Yes.
And that's what it was, right? Yeah, remote work. And I thought it was really interesting because it's so important that you can't put it into one single category. And I mean, it transcended everything.
Yes.
Which I think as teachers, we know it was everywhere.
It was everywhere.
It's everywhere. And one of the ones that stuck out to me was, which I hadn't really thought about it, but how with COVID and with all the data and the privacy and all the security information that some students are actually feeling like uncomfy about going remote school, and how they're feeling uncomfy with like enrolling and like doing those things. So the higher education, like the universities and stuff, are actually feeling like kind of a constraint on, oh, well, we don't have as many enrollees, and oh, now we don't have the money, and oh, you know what, now we got to collaborate with other people. We have to collaborate with other universities and go, okay, well, what are we going to do to work together? Like, I'll do this if you do this. And it made me feel like, they're like coming down almost to my level, because that's how like elementary schools, like public schools are. We collaborate with each other all the time because
all
we
the
just don't
time.
have it. So I was like, I feel like it's really interesting how they're feeling the same way that we're feeling, but it took like a global pandemic.
A global pandemic to make everybody see. Because it's funny, because I have a lot of people ask me, so you're going to school online? And I'm just like, yeah. So, that's not anything new, but they're like, well, why don't you want to go to the classroom? And obviously I was like, well, it's more convenient to go
Absolutely.
online, because of, well, our lives. And it's harder to go to a classroom and sit for 2 to 3 hours than it is to log on and have these conversations with our team members and still do the same coursework. And we do it on our own time. Like, we collaborate when we think it's, beneficial to us. And then we go ahead and do the classwork. I just, it's funny because my kids started doing that when I was remote teaching. We would have class, and then they would start another meeting, and they would be discussing.
Mine did too.
They would be discussing. I would just pop in, and I'm like, "What are y'all talking about?" Well, we're trying to figure out your assignment, and we were talking about, and I was like, "Okay, say less. Bye. Have fun." And I'd log back off and let them have their conversations.
It was great just to watch that happen, and then to see how like this whole group of panelists, this whole group of people went, yeah, look, that's valid. That's everything that we saw.
Yes, we lived it. Yes.
Yes, I love it. But that was the most interesting thing to me, is because I had never thought about it that way. But to hear someone say, you know what, now higher universities are feeling what you're feeling. It's like, oh, and then it makes you think, how is that going to impact and change the way that we do things? How is that going to change the way that things are done?
Just like online shopping closed a lot of brick and mortar stores, I think this is going to close a lot of brick and mortar schools.
That's interesting.
I really do think, and I've seen it in my own school, like the normal enrollment was like about 900 kids. We're down to like 8, maybe 770 something.
Our enrollment went down too, but I had never thought about, I knew some of them were homeschooling, but I never thought about
most of them went to the virtual academy that we have. And I was, talking to a parent, and she said it was not necessarily due to COVID. That was part of the reason. The other reason was the flexibility. She said, do you understand that my child can go to school and we can travel the world? And I said, I never thought about it like that. She said, and he doesn't miss any of his assignments. So, because his parents both work in oil and gas, so they traveled a lot. And she's like, he could go to his, the school online and not miss anything. It's almost like having a, home-based tutor.
And that's so interesting, especially for like a child like that. They never have to feel the social pressure and I got to go to a new school. I got to start over. And then getting all the records and moving them over. And like our kiddos with like IEPs and stuff, like those teachers waiting on that. You don't have to.
I think that's why we will always have schools, and you will always have teachers who are actually in the schools, because there's a great population of people who just benefit from human interaction, face-to-face human interaction. Sometimes it's very difficult for our kids to do this, especially if you have learning deficits or difficulties. This may not work for you, or you don't have the support source at home, because some of our babies, their attention span is so short. And if you don't have anybody saying, sit down and pay attention, and that's where the remote learning, it kind of got a little wonky, because the ones who were going to do it are going to do it. The ones who you would have to sit there and redirect in class, you have to redirect them on the computer. And it's a lot harder to redirect somebody at someone else's house that's not sitting in front of you.
Yes, it's like breaking that wall. And it's almost like when I had to do it, and I don't know why, but it made me feel uncomfortable sometimes, because I was like, I'm like having to reach into your home and be like, I'm having to reach out of my space, because, we're taught you stay within your space, you do what you can within your space. And now I'm like, oh, let me reach out of my space.
And that is truly I look, I think we've gotten out of the.
We sure did, but
It's okay. Look, this is what we do. I mean, it did apply to that though, but I do think that was like the biggest argument, that now we have access to people's homes. And I was like, well, do you understand how you have access to our classrooms? And we look at our classrooms just like you look at your home.
absolutely.
So I'm not going to tell you what to do in your home. Are you telling me what to do in my classroom? Because technically, I am the aficionado. I should know. I have the degree to do
Right.
what it is that I'm doing. You don't tell the doctor what to do, but you tell me. Okay, that's a whole nother situation.
But that kind of goes with the privacy thing they were talking about too in the reports. It's not just data privacy that we have to worry about, but it's privacy within like Zoom meetings, and it's privacy within
So there
the
was a
things that
huge,
kids are doing and
I
stuff.
don't know what district this was in, and I ran across it too. If you were a teacher, you probably noticed it. With children being in the home, they don't really pay attention to the things because they're at home. They're not realizing the things going on around them. And parents are not realizing that the camera is on and other people can see them. And we've had instances where people walk by the camera and you see stuff. Yes. And I was online and I'm like, ma'am. And she didn't realize it. Yes, that was real. And they were fussing. And I'm like, well, we have to keep the camera on to ensure that your child is doing what they're supposed to do. Like it's a community. Everybody had to be more hyper aware of what they're doing. Because when you're at home, you're very laid back and you're not paying attention to those things. So that's a security, definitely a security issue.
Yes.
I think those were the ones, especially that personal device one. That was interesting. Or the authentication process. Because I know when we log into Blackboard, they have to authenticate us
with the Duo.
And I know when at my school, we had like a Microsoft thingy. Well, it's almost like you can log in, but then you have to have a second source to prove that it's you and put in the code,
right.
And all that kind of stuff. So that's interesting to see as well. So yeah, I'm interested to know where it will go from here, though. Like, what else can change?
What else will be affected?
Yes.
With everything that's gone on?
Because even with the trends that they have now, what trend should be next? It's like where do we go from here? Because we're already at a point where we see how beneficial and how inhibiting technology can be. So where does it go from here, though? Because we've incorporated so much into our classrooms within the last 2 years that we never thought.
Exactly.
Like our age, the kids that we service would be doing on a higher level, sure. But yeah, this is taken to a whole other level.
It's going to be interesting to see how it affects teachers who are currently serving and teachers who are not, because you're going to have that divide of I'm technology pro and I'm ready to learn, and then you're going to have those teachers that are absolutely not.
So I do think on the collegiate level, you will have more technology classes being offered in other curriculums. Like they're going to be cross-curricular. Like if you're getting an education degree, you're going to have to take some educational technology classes.
More so than we already are.
Yes. Because it's a lot for incoming teachers, and they're like, you have to memorize all these different platforms and what they all do. And I'm like, yeah.
And every district is different.
They are, and they spend millions of dollars on these platforms, and they're monitoring your usage. So you have to have your kids on these platforms, or else
because they're going to ask you. They're going to hold you accountable.
Yes. I said, so you're teaching direct instruction, but they also need to be using these things. So it's just, yeah. Okay, well, that was our overview of the 2021 EDUCAUSE Horizon Report. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.